These are the best V8 engines made in the USA. We have the Chevrolet L88. 1953 saw the launching of Chevrolet's most admired vehicle. The original Corvette was designed to compete with the new European two-seater roadsters, but it would later develop into a full-fledged muscle car. A sportier body and more rubber-searing engine choices would be added to the C2. The powerful L88 was one of such engines. A timeless American V8 engine that is considered one of the greatest is the Chevy L88. Capable of producing 425 horsepower and 450 pound-feet of torque, the 427 became legendary for its abilities. In 1967, there were just 20 Corvettes built with the L88 unit. At number 14, we have the Dodge 426 HEMI. When Dodge unveiled the Hellcat engine crate's performance, every aficionado for muscle cars had to take a second look. Dodge had some of the most powerful engines available when they were introduced in the 1960s and 1970s. The 426 HEMI, a powerhouse built by Chrysler for NASCAR competition, is the kind of engine that would make any gearhead happy. The 426 HEMI, sometimes known as the Elephant, because of its massive size and high power output, was the highest engine available for a number of Chrysler vehicles from 1966 to 1970. The 426 was built to thrive both on and off the track, with a rated output of 425 horsepower at 5,000 RPM and 490 pound-feet of torque at 4,000 RPM. Coming in at number 13, we have the Ford Boss 429. The Mustang was an enormous success by the end of the 1960s. For the pony car, Ford discovered the ideal formula. The Ford Mustang Boss 429 of 1969 served as the last blow to the competitive landscape of Ford. During the height of the American automobile industry, Ford's Boss 429 engine was among its most powerful models. For NASCAR competition, the 429 engine was created to compete against Chevrolet and Chrysler. In order to complete homologation, the race-oriented engine was made public. The 429 cubic inch 385 series V8 with 375 horsepower at 5,200 RPM and 490 pound-feet of torque at 3,400 RPM was the engine option for the 859 429s manufactured in 1969. At number 12, we have the Ford Flathead. Any American V8 engine may be thought of as deriving from the Ford Flathead V8. Ford kicked off the V8 revolution back in 1932. Henry Ford was unique in that he brought the 8-cylinder engine within the reach of the general public, even though the engine layout was there long before he took aim. Despite not being the most potent or effective device, particularly in comparison to the contemporary models, the Flathead's simplicity was one of its main advantages. Most people just knew the Model 18, the first vehicle it sat in, as the Ford V8 because it was so famous. Here at number 11, we have the Buick Nailhead V8. This engine is more commonly known as a nailhead, even though Buick referred to it as the Fireball V8. The Buick brand was developed in the 1950s and 1960s with the aid of this engine, which propelled some of the most significant muscle cars of the time. For the SR-71 Blackbird supersonic plane, it was even employed as a starting motor. At number 10, we have the Ford 427 Big Block. In racing specifically, competition is a wonderful thing because it invariably bestows upon us incredible powertrains. The Ford 427 is one such American V8 with motorsport roots. There are many variations of this engine, which is a member of the Ford Y-Block family. Among these, the Shelby Cobra 427 SC's 427 side oiler is the most famous. The SOHC Cammer was an additional 427 variation designed to outperform NASCAR's 426 HEMI cars. The engine's final version included cross-bolted main bearing covers to withstand more power and better lubrication. It was based on the 427 side oiler. As a consequence, a reliable and powerful engine was created, and it killed HEMIs. Because of pollution rules, road-going vehicles were detuned, while racing variants could generate over 650 horsepower. Now at number 9, we have the Buick Small Block 215. Although Buick created a new compact V8 engine in 1961, it was never intended to be the engine of a great American muscle car. Instead, it would power Oldsmobiles and Pontiacs. Now, you might wonder, why is it so unique? The British car manufacturer Rover purchased everything related to the engine from General Motors long after they had completed working on it. At number 8, we have the Ford Windsor 5.0. Following their inaugural V8's triumph, Ford never gave up on achieving greatness. They kept improving their services because they were addicted to the configuration. They released the first Windsor family member in 1961. Later in 1968, the first of the 5.0-liter mills came to comply with the Trans Am Racing Series regulations, which stipulated that the maximum displacement was 5 liters. Remember our question in the beginning of the video? Let's see if you got the answer correct. Coming in at number 7, we have the Chrysler 426 Max Wedge. Chrysler offered us the 426 Max Wedge before the powerful 426 HEMI. In 1951, the wedgehead B-block design was first introduced with a 331 cubic inch displacement. Eventually, this was increased to 426 cubic inches. The 426 Max Wedge was focused only on racing, just like its replacement, the 426 HEMI. The exhaust manifolds, which angled upward and downward like two snakes, were another unique feature. The 426 Max Wedge shared the HEMI's size and orange color. The engine is over-engineered in every way since it was designed to run quickly and withstand extreme strain. At number 6, we have the Cadillac 472-500 Big Block V8. Not intended for performance use, one of the largest American V8 engines ever installed in a mass-produced vehicle. Only Cadillac's full-size premium cars, such as the DeVille and Fleetwood, were intended to use the 472. The engine was a low-revving lump designed to create huge low-end torque. A modified crankshaft enabling a longer stroke of 4.304 inches was used in the 500 cubic inch version of the engine that Cadillac debuted in 1970. Although small growls would cause a steep fall in performance in 1971, this was still excellent for an additional 25 horsepower and somewhat greater torque. The most analog and driver-focused V8 car available today is, ironically, offered by Cadillac. Now at number 5, we have the Buick 455 High Output. Even though the GSX caused quite a stir in the 1980s, Buick is not one of the brands that you would often associate with American muscle cars. However, in 1970, the company best known for producing aging sedans unfit for a king developed a true showstopper that could hold its own against the Chevy Big Block and Chrysler HEMI versions. Although it had a 455 high-output V8 engine, new heads with larger valves, a redesigned intake, stronger internals, and an adjusted carburetor all helped the 455 HO. The engine provided more torque than the Cadillac 472 and 500 cubic inch engines. At number 4, we have the Chevrolet 454 Big Block. Few things were as cool as a big block Chevy V8 in the 1960s and 1970s, and the 454 Big Block was the best engine. The L88 427, which we have already discussed, existed, but its sole real-world employment was in competition specifications. The Chevrolet Chevelle SS and the 1970 C3 Corvette were two examples of full-size muscle vehicles that were traditionally equipped with the 454 engine. While the 454 was available in many power configurations, the Chevelle SS 454 was equipped with the most noteworthy of them, the LS6. Number 3 is an amazing car. We have the Pontiac 455 Super Duty. When Pontiac introduced the 455 V8 in 1970, it was the biggest engine the company had ever manufactured. In 1971, a 455 with a high output was launched. Due to changing emissions regulations in the 1970s, engines were designed entirely differently. Pontiac was the final manufacturer to preserve, releasing the modified Super Duty 455 until 1976. The 455 Super Duty generated an incredible 500 pound-feet of torque, even though it wasn't the most powerful 455 Pontiac ever made. With this engine, Pontiac is making a final fight against laws that sought to phase out large block engines and ultimately put a halt to the production of muscle vehicles in general. At number 2, we have the Ford Modular 4.6. Ford's production facility tooling and production methods are referred to as modular. Even among contemporary muscle cars, the 4.6's overhead cams are quite uncommon. Many manufacturers still use pushrod technology. Depending on the version, there were 4.6 variants that used 2, 3, or 4 valves per cylinder in an SOHC or DOHC arrangement. The 4.6 modular engine has demonstrated its dependability and is quite sturdy. Finally, at number 1, we have the Ford 5.0-liter Coyote. Ford's modular engines were among their most well-liked engine designs. These were the V8 and V10 engine series that the public had grown to adore. The 5.0-liter Coyote engine was completely new and set apart from the other engines in the range, even though it was categorized as one of the modular engines. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell for more content like this.